This is a tutorial for a ballet leotard with a deep neckline insert. I will be using 4-way stretch mesh and 4-way stretch lycra. I am using 0.7 cm wide elastic, then I have some serger threads and sewing threads for my machine. I also have a fabric marker and a stretch needle for my machine. Make sure that your fabrics are fully stretchy. I am placing my pattern pieces on folded fabric. In this leotard, a bag will be placed on the fold. The front and the back of the panty will be placed on fold as well. For the neckline insert, I'm using stretch mesh, but lycra works as well. Lightweight mesh can be difficult to cut, so I like to place a paper underneath. It makes the cutting much more precise. After that, we will cut all the other pieces as well. Next, we will do some markings on our pieces. I am marking the alignment marks around the insert. Because the lightweight mesh can be so difficult to keep stable, I like to mark all the stitching lines to the fabric. This helps me to sew the insert more precisely. Now we have all the pieces cut and we are ready to place the lining. I am adding lining only to the front pieces. I simply place the pieces on the lining fabric and I cut them roughly apart. Just make sure that the grain line is the same on both fabrics. Then I attach the lining to the pieces with a serger and cut the excess material off from the edges. This can be done with zigzag as well, but then you must cut the edges with scissors. I mark the notches once again. It is very important that they are visible for the next step. We pin the neckline insert starting from the top notch. Then pin the remaining part of the insert carefully. I like to use a lot of pins to keep it stable. I recommend doing this first with a sewing machine using zigzag. I am using very narrow zigzag and keeping the length of the stitch also quite low. Now the other side is attached, then we can pin the opposite side. I recommend starting from the top notch and then we pin the bottom and then everything between. Now the insert is attached and next we are going to fold the edges out. But first we are going to serge the seam allowances one more time for more clean results. You can also do it with zigzag. We want to keep the seam allowances folded out, but it's a little difficult because the elastic comes here. So that's why we have to cut a little notch to the connecting point of the insert. Now we have a good space for the elastic to come here and we can still fold the seam allowances out. We do the same for both sides. Before adding the elastics, we must connect all the pieces together. I connect the bottom to the top first. And this time I am only using serger to connect them together. Because my seam allowance in the pattern is 1 cm and the serger seam allowance is usually 0.7 cm, I must cut 3 mm off to get the right seam allowance. Now we have the top and the bottom connected, and then we have to connect the side seams and the crotch and the shoulder straps. Now we have everything connected together. The next step is to add the elastics. The first option is to pre-measure the elastic. I recommend having the elastic exactly the same measurement as the opening, or if you want to have it a little tighter, you can measure it to be about 95% of the length of the opening. Measure and cut the elastic and pin it to the opening with multiple pins. Next we will attach the elastic in place with a serger. Soon I will show you how you can do this with zigzag as well. If the elastic is a little tighter than the opening, we must remember to stretch it while we sew. Another way to add the elastics is to simply sew it directly to the opening. If you want the elastic to be a little tighter than the opening, you can pull it very gently while sewing. This might need some practicing at first, and I recommend testing the correct tightness on a test piece. Next we are gonna add the elastics to the neckline. And now you can see that the elastic settles beautifully when we have cut the notches around the insert here. Next we will simply sew the elastic to the opening. This can be done with a serger as well, but if you are using zigzag, make sure that the stitch is very stretchy. I recommend placing the zigzag to the very edge. And make sure to check that the seam allowances are folding correctly. Now I have attached all the elastics, and then we are going to fold them in. Now we will top stitch the elastics. You can use a regular sewing machine with zigzag, or you can also use a cover locker. Make sure to pull the fabric straight under the foot while you sew. I also recommend stretching the elastics while sewing, especially if your elastics are a little tighter. Now the leotard is finished. The patterns and the written instructions are available at tutustudioborealis.com.